In the annals of NBA history, Pee Wee Kirkland will hardly have an impact on much of anything. But anyone interested in basketball will surely remember the story of Pee Wee Kirkland, the legend of two games. His story will both inspire you, leave you shaking your head, and leave you dumbstruck all at once. He was an aspiring NBA player, a community philanthropist, and the godfather of the Harlem drug business who chose the life of crime over an NBA career. In this video, we're going to be talking about the life and career of Pee Wee Kirkland and what made him a legend in both games. To get more content like this on basketball history, like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you'll get to see our videos immediately as soon as they drop. Without any further ado, let's get right into it. Hip-hop fans probably know Pee Wee Kirkland's name because he has been mentioned by a whole host of rappers, including Fat Joe and Ja Rule. In fact, his title, Legend of Two Games, came from Pusha T in his classic song Grinding. Given that rap music glorifies drugs, violence, and the life of crime, it's understandable that he would be mentioned there because of his drug life. But before we talk about his drug dynasty, let's talk about the basketball side of Pee Wee Kirkland. To understand how good Pee Wee Kirkland was when he was covered by Sports Illustrated, they described him as the fastest player to ever play college basketball. Pee Wee was explosive, and very few people could stop him. He could dribble, score, and he was the first person to make a 360-degree shot. Everyone who watched him knew the talent was there, but his surroundings would get the better of him. To put his situation into perspective, Pee Wee Kirkland grew up in poor circumstances in Harlem, New York. Because of how poor his family was, he started selling drugs at the age of 13. Now, I'm not giving poverty as an excuse for entering into a life of crime, but that was the reason Pee Wee Kirkland gave. He didn't let his mother know that he was into drugs at that point, and she said he told her he was just selling newspapers. But drug money is fast money, and by the time she noticed, it was too late. He was in too deep to turn back. He was smart, really smart, and he soon became so good at selling drugs that he bought a Rolls Royce before he had a driver's license. He did all of this while also living a double life at Charles Evans High School as a basketball superstar. Pee Wee's excellence was mostly displayed at Holcomb Rucker Park. For all of those who know about basketball history, the Holcomb Rucker Park might sound familiar to you, but if you don't know what it is, I'll explain. Greg Marius Court at Holcomb Rucker Park is a basketball court located at 155th Street and Frederick Douglass Boulevard in Harlem, Manhattan, New York City, just east of the former Polo Grounds site. The court was a goldmine of talent for scouts all over the country, with colleges and NBA franchises alike sending scouts to come here to pick up gems in the rough. Sometimes pro players come to this court to test their hands. It was the ultimate stage for street ball in all of America, and it was on this stage that Pee Wee dominated and got his superstar status. Pee Wee was not just a scorer, he was also a genius at facilitating play. His vision, passing ability, and superior ball handling skills made him a threat on and off the ball, and he was the prototype of a two-way guard that's popular today. Kirkland attended Charles Evans Hughes Senior High School in New York City. His outstanding athletic performance earned him a full-ride scholarship to Cottrell College in North Carolina for the first time. Kirkland, on the other hand, quickly outgrew his two-year institution ball club when he began averaging 41 points per game. His first ever achievements in North Carolina made headlines, prompting nationally known schools to offer new scholarships. In the late 1960s, Kirkland chose Norfolk State University in Virginia as his four-year school. Kirkland rose to the top of the basketball record books during his time at NSU, breaking every single record in his first year that a four-year player could break. Now at that point, everyone knew he was special, and they thought he was heading to the NBA. So that begs the question, why exactly did Pee Wee Kirkland not make it to the NBA? The simple answer is because he had more money than every single player in the NBA. Pee Wee Kirkland was actually offered an NBA contract by the Chicago Bulls. The contract was worth $40,000 a year, which was reasonable at that time. But for Pee Wee Kirkland, that was not enough money to make him leave his house every day. In fact, rumor had it that he had the same amount of money in the trunk of a car that he drove to the negotiation. He made nearly $1 million per month for drugs, so there was no way he was going to drop it all for a $40,000 contract. He rejected the contract and went straight back to Harlem, where he would cement his place as a drug kingpin. So now let's take a look at the drug life of Pee Wee Kirkland. At that time, there was a huge heroin problem in America, but it was the worst in Harlem. Over 100,000 people living in Harlem were addicted to heroin, but where society saw a problem, Kirkland saw an opportunity. For his first major drug deal, he sold or exchanged $300,000 worth of jewelry for heroin, and then sold that on the street for a whopping $900,000. Now, if that seems like a lot of money now, just imagine what it was back then. After this deal, Pee Wee Kirkland took a step back and truly became the godfather and kingpin of the Harlem drug business, earning the nickname Bank of Harlem. He stopped selling drugs himself and instead became the money man, financing numerous drug operations in Harlem for massive profits. He'd loan someone $100,000 to start up their drug business, and in a month, he would receive $150,000 in return. Now spread this over multiple people, and Pee Wee Franklin was able to multiply his wealth tremendously and was estimated to be worth over $70 million, even though the government put his net worth at $30 million. I mean, he was a drug lord, so there was no way the government could know exactly how much he owned. He still had the love and admiration of his community though, even though he was selling them drugs that were killing them slowly. Sometimes Pee Wee Kirkland would go to where the homeless people were and start distributing money to them. He made sure everyone got a bit of money, and most times he ran out of homeless people to give money to before he actually ran out of money to give. The irony of all this is that most of the homeless people were junkies, so whatever money he gave out eventually found its way back to him one way or another. Regardless, Pee Wee really did care about his community. He even hired a guy whose only job was to make sure that nobody in Harlem had a problem. If you have a problem, Pee Wee will give you the money to sort it out. This made the Harlem community love him and in turn kept him safe. But nothing lasts forever, and when you live a life of crime, the law will eventually catch up with you. And that's exactly what happened to Pee Wee Kirkland 3 years after he rejected the Chicago Bulls contract. Pee Wee Kirkland was arrested in Boston after a drug deal went bad. The authorities claim that Pee Wee was at the scene, and that gave them the excuse they needed to arrest him and send him to prison. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison, but he got out after 4. But that was not the end of it. He was being investigated for tax evasion given his net worth, and when he came out of prison, he was sent back 3 years later to serve 10 more years. Now, Pee Wee is a free man, and he has left his life of crime behind. After he came out of jail, he started working as a teacher in a local school and as a speaker against drug use and crime. Because of his previous history in Harlem, when he speaks, people listen, and this has helped him put a lot of people onto the right path. And that brings us to the end of the story of why Pee Wee Kirkland never made it to the NBA. He had the talent and the opportunity, but he chose to be the king of the Harlem underworld instead. Now that's a choice that he has come to regret today at the ripe old age of 76. To get more videos like this, leave a like, subscribe, and make sure you turn on those post notifications for this channel. Until next time, live a life of purpose.